This is the end. Yep, 100 episodes, which is about 80 more than I ever thought I'd do. But I need a break. I have a house to finish a remodel of. I need to finish up canoes. So many canoes. I've been putting off work. And honestly, I just need a break. So I'm taking a little bit of a, let's call it a sabbatical. I'll be back. I'm thinking this fall. Give me the summer to get some jobs done, recharge a bit, come up with some new ideas. And you may not know this, but I'm not a spring chicken anymore. Long gone are the days of me throwing a 60-pound bundle of shingles over my shoulder and walking up a 20-foot ladder. I might be able to get up a stepladder, but I probably wouldn't be able to walk for 3 days afterwards. Which leads me to how the heck I got here in the first place. Hi, my name's Roger Kugler. This is Working at Woodworking Podcast, where I hope to encourage you to use your woodworking skills to help people in your community, either by fixing furniture, building cabinets, maybe a bookcase, or coming up with some nifty, neat project, charcuterie boards, and selling them online or at local craft shows or church bazaars or out of your very own shop. Make some money, buy some tools, have some fun, support your family, quit your day job, be your own person. Don't work for the man anymore. You get to choose your own hours, which 12 hours of the day you want to work. 6 days a week, sometimes 7. What a life. Now, I started my business on July 3rd, 2002. I had been working in the retail industry for about 15 years. This was career number 3 for me, for those of you at home keeping track. We had 2 kids, young kids, a new house, a mortgage. My wife was a couple years into a new job at a new company. This is career number 1 for her. And we were going crazy. 2 jobs, 2 kids, both in school, 2 vehicles, 1 with car payments, credit cards, low-fat diets, Clinton in the White House, hanging chads, Bush in the White House, a country trying desperately to crawl out of an economic crater caused by the dot-com bubble bursting all over the place in 2000, and then the 9/11 attacks in 2001, and the near total collapse of the economy after that. Yeah, it was stressful. Kind of an unhappy home life for both of us. And my job was not going all that well. Now, I'll spare you the nasty details. I'm sure you have stories about jobs that kind of turned sour that you could regale all of us with for hours. But have you ever been in a situation when you know you need to do something, you love certain parts of your job, but hate others, but you hold on so tight to the paycheck? You're afraid. You're afraid of consequences. You're afraid of letting go. Now, this wasn't a sudden development. I've been working for, a couple years to get out, to step up to another job, higher pay, better working conditions, but hadn't really found anything. Now, I had a couple job offers, opportunities, but not for as much money. It was really interesting work, but maybe I was just holding on too tightly. Did I mention I had a wife, 2 kids, a mortgage, a car payment, and a broken HVAC system? Yeah. We get so used to our current living conditions, even though they may be really hard and kind of suck. But the idea of getting rid of those, of changing those, of maybe going into something worse, that can really be an anchor for many of us. At least it was for me. Now, I knew it was coming one way or the other. I just didn't know when. I was smart enough to start stockpiling cash. I did side jobs, repairing canoes and kayaks, among other things, so we had a bit of a cushion. I had scheduled 2 weeks off, time I was going to use to work on the house, watch as many episodes of This Old House and New Yankee Workshop as I could, and decide what I was going to do with the rest of my life. I was thinking home repair, cabinetry, woodworking, something like that. Or maybe bookkeeping, office management. I was thinking serving the small businesses, namely contractors, roofing companies, tradespeople who were big enough they needed help with all the administrative office stuff, but were still too small to actually hire office employees. I figured if I could service, half a dozen of these folks, I'd be able to make a decent living, maybe a dozen, people. Finally, things came to a head in July of 2002. I was either going to resign or I would be let go. Or worse, I wouldn't be let go. I remember calling my wife after I handed over the keys I had for the business, shook the owner's hand, and offered to buy the place if he ever wanted to sell. I was terrified. She was at work. I had to pick the kids up from school in a couple hours. When I called her and told her what had happened, she said, she actually kind of yelled at me, "It's about time! What took you so long?" Huh? Ha! Turns out, she hated my job more than I did. Now, I had a couple hours to kill before I had to pick up the kids. And since I was now unemployed, I decided to do what I wanted to do. So I went to visit a friend at a local university, and he offered me a job teaching sailing. Wow! Teaching sailing? And they were going to pay me? Whoa! But the more I thought about it and looking at the class schedule, I couldn't swing it. It was after school, I'd have the kids, and they were a little too big to stow away aboard a 420 or a Thistle. So it was super nice being asked, and I regrettably turned it down, but I accepted that. No big deal. Wow, thanks for asking. I also had time waiting for the kids to come out that I called a business friend of mine. He's a sales rep. I've worked with him for years, and he offered me a job, working for him as a sub-rep. Whoa! But then again, that required a lot of travel, a lot of being away from home, which is exactly opposite of what we needed to do. But man, that was so nice being asked. So by the time I got home, my wife came home, I'd already had 2 job offers. Whoa! After having been kind of beat up for so long, this was really refreshing. Now, a significant thing here is we had saved up some cash. We had a cushion. I didn't have to start delivering pizza, the next day. And this was absolutely incredibly beneficial. It allowed me to kind of clear my head, get the stress of the previous job career out of my body, and allowed me to kind of open my eyes to see what was next. I did watch a lot of This Old House and the New Yankee Workshop, and I went to the library by myself. Sheer bliss. While the kids were at school. I sat for hours reading issues of Fine Woodworking and Fine Home Building, which I rarely got to do. I had pretty much decided against the office job, service job. I wanted to actually do and not manage. So while I'm thinking about all this, my neighbors knew that I had, quit my job. I got a phone call from them asking if I could build a pergola over their hot tub. Ha! Guess I'm in the construction business now. Now, one little problem in my scheme that I had thought of, but not very hard because I didn't know which way I was going to go. I only had hand tools. Yeah, at this point, I'd only been working with hand tools. Now, I had worked with power tools, growing up through high school, shop class, and in our basement workshop. But I had given up all my power tools. When our son was born, our first kid, my wife and I worked a split shift. I worked like 6 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, and she worked like 3:30 to midnight. We literally handed the kid off in the driveway, smelly diaper and all. And after, she left for work, I'd take him out into the garage. We were renting at the time in this little baby carrier, a restraint device. And it worked. Most of the time he just sat there and looked around and cooed and looked real cute until I turned on the table saw. Now I tried really hard to get him to wear hearing protection, mouse ears, but A, they're not sized for like babies. B, I wasn't going to try to shove anything into his ears. That wasn't going to work. Didn't want to encourage the habit, if you know what I mean. And after, giving up in frustration, both of us, I decided that the only thing I could possibly do was get rid of my power tools. I wasn't going to give up woodworking, and I wasn't going to give up the kid. So I gave my table saw to my brother, and my router had burned out like 2 weeks before delivery. I didn't have that much to begin with, so it wasn't a huge loss, although I did miss the table saw. And this turned out to be one of the very best decisions I'd ever made. I had to relearn how to do everything in woodworking. Number one, kind of stopped using plywood, sheet goods. And at the time, we were, not rolling in the money, so to speak. I had been using a lot of number 2 pine, construction grade 1x from the lumberyard or the box store. It was cheap. It looked okay, finished correctly, and I built a lot of furniture with it. And I learned very quickly that one of the hardest things to do with using only hand tools is ripping lumber to width. So you can do 2 things. One, buy an old handsaw at an auction and learn how to sharpen it. Or 2, anything that you're building, use, especially if you're using, number 2 pine, design your piece using ready-made widths. In other words, 1x2s, 1.5 1x4s, 3.5, so on and so forth, so that you don't have to rip. Yeah, you might be able to take off 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch by using a hand plane, but as far as splitting a wide board in twain, nah, I'm way too lazy to do that. Now remember, this was, number 2 pine. The other neat thing about using number 2 pine is when you screw up and you cut a board to 68 inches instead of 86 inches because there's some wires in your brain that aren't connected properly, it just doesn't hurt as much as if that had been a piece of walnut. And using number 2 pine really kind of teaches you about wood movement. You cannot trap grain, cross-grain situations. It will punish you within a season. And number 2 pine is, it's challenging to make it look good. I finally figured out that a shellac sealer was absolutely mandatory on anything that you're doing. And I really like the look of just the natural pine, especially as it ages, it develops a really deep patina. And if you want to, you can go ahead and use some gel stain. It doesn't blotch nearly as much as using a pure liquid stain. And it will introduce you to the wonderful world of dye stains, which is where the magic really, really happens. Anyway, sorry, tangent. I also had to learn how to make dados by hand. No more router, no more table saw with a dado stack. And if you wanted a molded edge, something that you normally would use a router and a bearing guided profile bit, nope, can't do that anymore. But there's other ways of doing it. You can actually make your own scratch planes with really any shape that you want and simply scratch it into the edge. It's how they used to do it when you were too poor to actually buy molding planes. Those were wonderful 10 years. I mean, the kids enjoyed it, you know. They would actually be out in the workshop with me. I didn't make a whole bunch of noise. And my wife never had to worry about what to get me for Christmas or birthday. She would simply call Garrett Wade and ask, what does he need? And they always came through. She bought me some wonderful tools. And honestly, tools that I would not have bought myself because, okay, I'm just not that smart. Tools that I still use today. Now, the one little flaw in this scheme that I didn't quite anticipate, I actually thought that I was going to save money by using hand tools and instead of power tools. Yeah, that was silly. So anyway, came up with a design for the neighbor's pergola. I calculated all the material costs. I took a guess at how long it would take me and what I should charge for labor. I used the 3 times ratio, 3 times the material cost, 2 times the material cost, kind of came up with what I thought was a good price. Yes, I underbid that job, but hey, it was a job, and surprise, you're in business now. And I had estimated the job using power tools because I knew I was going to have to use power tools. Kids are old enough now that, you know, they don't freak out when you turn on the router. Well, actually my wife does. But anyway, I needed to buy some tools. What tools should I buy first? Don't get all hung up on what tool you should buy. Only concentrate on what tool you should buy first. Because you're going to buy more than one tool. So the only thing we need to really worry about is the order in which you buy them. And I'm a super advocate for buying the tool that you need when you need the tool. So I decided to buy a bandsaw first. That would be the most versatile thing that I could use on this job. And, come on, let's face it, people, bandsaws are wonderfully versatile. You can do so much work with them. The only reason I would not want a bandsaw is if I was going to strictly build cabinets. Because you're not going to throw a 4x8 sheet of plywood on a bandsaw and rip it. For that, buy a track saw. So I ended up with a little Grizzly 14-inch, 15-amp bandsaw that has been working like a champ for over 22 years. My next job after the pergola came from my wife, or rather her coworkers, because I soon discovered that my wife was an outstanding sales manager. She brought me more jobs than I could ever have gotten on my own. Now, I had built a website by this time, and social media was just kind of getting started. So I got some traffic through that, and I networked. I actually walked into people's shops and introduced myself and handed them a business card. Now, some of these people I had been bugging, during my career search, well, literally for a couple years prior. And they congratulated me for actually pulling the trigger and doing this. And I got a couple jobs right away from those folks. Typically, these were jobs that were too small for them because, these were, big shops with employees, and they didn't really want to deal with making the little, potato cabinet for Mrs. George. So they had to hand that off to me, and I got several jobs that way. Today, man, it's like pulling teeth getting people to talk to each other. But, if you're just starting out, you have got to network with other people. Let them know you're there. Let them know what you can do, what you can't do, and work collaboratively. Maybe you take on a job that's a little too big for you. Maybe you don't have the space for it. Well, maybe they could build part of it and you could build the other part of it and you can install it. Don't sit there like a mushroom just all by yourself. Get out there in the building community. Would not hurt at all if you were to join, like the local chamber of commerce, the builders association, whatever route you're going to go, the International Federation of Furniture Refinishers. I just made that up. I don't know if that exists. Probably does. Now, during this time, I had a mentor. Somebody who I had known when I was in retail. And I had talked to him over the, years. And we kind of set up this lunch date thing once a month or so. And I'd meet him for lunch and I'd ask him a billion questions. He'd kind of coach me through this. He's the one that convinced me that I did not need 100 customers to survive. He said 20. He told me that if everyone he has talked to about work actually came through with the work they had talked about, he'd be busy for 2 to 3 years. And I thought he was just, blowing smoke. But no, I experienced that. That's actually true. Now, the other thing that I did during this time is I took almost every job that came along. Right after I accepted the job, I went to the library to figure out how to actually do the job that I just accepted that I didn't know how to do. And it was a joyous occasion when I started accepting jobs that I did know how to do and I didn't have to go to the library. Now, I never charged my customers for my learning curve, never have done that. I just kind of chalk that up to tuition paid. Sure, I may have actually lost some money looking at a job from a pure time standpoint, but I learned a new skill. I learned how to do something, and that pays off in the future. And kind of gradually, I started to get more trim jobs, more cabinet jobs, bookcases. I got hired by a local general contractor whom I had known from my retail days to do all the trim in it was like $1 million house. And that was a wonderful experience. That led to other jobs. That led to new tools, new opportunities. Now, as far as the home life, it was smoothing out quite nicely. My wife would take the kids to school in the morning, drop them off. I would go to the job site and usually work through lunch. Then go and pick the kids up, in the afternoon, bring them home, kind of get them settled, and go out to the shop and I get an hour, maybe 2 hours worth of work. Now, it is super convenient to have your workshop in an attached garage right next to the house within earshot of the kids. And whenever you don't hear anything, that means that kids are either drawing on the walls or trying to bathe the cat, and you need to do something. Anyway, that's how this all started. for the Boy Am I Dumb segment, let me tell you some of the things that I screwed up. Remember that pile of cash we had saved up prior to the job change? Yeah, it didn't last. Now, it did come in very, very handy, giving us a cushion and buying some of the initial power tools. But if you also remember at the beginning, I had mentioned low-fat diets and credit cards. Yeah, that was really dumb. It is so easy to fall into that snare, and it is so hard to crawl yourself out of that pit of despair. I mean, this right here could easily be another episode. But let me just say, if you use credit cards now and pay them off every month, congratulations, you are among the 1%ers. And the credit card people hate you because they're not making any money off you. Or at least until life happens. Someone smashes up your car, someone gets laid off, you get a sick kid, and money starts to get a little tight, and you don't pay that credit card off in full 1 month, and then the next month, and then the next month. Then the credit card people love you because now they're making interest off you like the other 99% of we schmucks out there. Now, if you use a credit card and have an unpaid balance, the average credit card holder has about a $7,000 balance on their credit cards now, and you're fine with that? Okay, you do you. Now, if it does bother you, well, we got some great help from the Dave Ramsey organization. I'll leave a link in the show notes. I can just say this will not go away by making the minimum payments. We tried, did not work. You need to get some help. You need to change the way you are living and the way you are using money. And I can also say, when you get everything paid off, it is absolutely worth it. Now, if you don't use credit cards now, pat yourself on the back. You have learned to live within your means. You have learned to spend less than you have. You have learned to think thrice before buying a new tool or a book or a night out on a town. Vacation. You have learned to save a little on each job, maybe 5%, 10%, maybe 3%, into what the accountants call retained earnings. Or you might call it the MFTF fund. That is, my Festool Fun Fund. You've learned how to put up with taking a little bit longer to do a job, to make a cut or do an assembly, because you're using some old tools that are paid for. Instead of using a credit card to go out and buy the latest, greatest tool that will increase your profits, increase your looks, make you lose weight, cut time in half, looks cool, and slices, dices, and julienne fries. And you have learned that paying for job materials with a credit card when you could not pay off the last month's balance in full is an alarm. A fire alarm, a collision alarm, a flooding alarm, my financial ship is on fire and we're taking on water and we're sinking alarm. If you hear that alarm, you have got to do something about it now. Oh, but what about the points? Sure. Yeah, go ahead. I mean, if you don't want to wear safety glasses in the shop, cool. I mean, you can do that. Fine. Whatever. I played with snakes, and I got bit really, really hard. And I never want to go back to doing that again. Missed jobs this week. Refinishing a pair of end tables. I mean, refinishing work, furniture repair, there's a great need for that. I mean, we talked about that in some of the previous episodes. If you have that talent, if you have that patience, if you have that, I think, curiosity on how in the world did they break this? How in the world did someone make this so that it would break this way? And how am I going to fix this? You can stay busy doing this, and you can make some very decent money doing this. One little caveat, space. If somebody brings you a rocking chair and someone else brings you a rocking chair and then somebody wants to bring you a kitchen dinette set with 4 chairs, you need some place to put these things, or you need to create a schedule of when people can bring these things to you. That I eventually figured out to do that, and it's worked out fairly well for me. Recommendations, the get out of credit card debt. Dave Ramsey Solutions, link in the show notes. And I'd like to give out a special thanks to listeners in Williamsburg, Virginia, Trier, Germany, and one listener in Qatar. Now, if you have questions or need maybe a coaching call while I'm on sabbatical, please do call or email me. I'd be happy to help you. And that might give me some fodder for future episodes. Thank you to all of you who have bought me cups of coffee over the years. I really appreciate it, and to all the people who have made donations to the podcast. You have no idea how much that supports both financially and kind of boost my confidence that this is actually worth it. And as a bonus, we've added some bloopers. My editor, my daughter, who has done a wonderful job of making me sound somewhat coherent, has collected. And maybe this is her opportunity for revenge. You can hear what she has to put up with. So I hope you enjoy that. Thanks all. We'll see you in a few months, and until then, happy woodworking.
Hello everyone. I am the editor of Working at Woodworking. As Roger has mentioned, I am also his child. I suppose my brother and I were his first audience. I was also his captive audience whenever he drove me back home from school. That's how I could have made the Eisenhower Priority Matrix episode by myself. Anyways, onto the show. Past episode 90, Dad mentioned that the podcast would be going on hiatus after the 100th episode. So I decided to start saving little sound bites that were funny for a last episode blooper reel. I would apologize for not having started this sooner, but frankly it might be a good thing that I only sampled 10 episodes. I took clips based off of a few categories: funny noises, ya-nos, mispronunciations, asides, cold opens, and I'm his child, so I think these are funny. Without further delay, let's start with some cold opens.
Okay, let's see what's in the mail today. Oh, this is interesting. Let me be blunt. You're not very sharp. Today we are going to talk about branding. No, not that type of branding. CPSC! Open up in there! We have a search warrant. I know my rights! What are you looking for? We have reason to believe you are manufacturing clothing storage units that don't meet ASTM 2057 TAC 23 standards. Now open up or we'll break the door down. You'll never take my chest of drawers, copper. Could this be the end of custom furniture? Hello.
Unfortunately, that's the shortest group. But who could forget all the times he tried to say words good and didn't say words good?
everyone is visibly winching and a few people go into convulsions on the floor. Old farmer gentleman wearing bib overalls and a rather... So, to our friend in Arkansas, I hope this helps. I hope, links in the show notes or make a donation. If it's something you really want to pursue, plane blades, chisels, and Brackley, Northampton, oh boy, get off on aluminium oxide. Nomenclature, Jorgensen clamp, search engine results. You're sitting there, you get a phone call, and it's Mrs. Smith wanting you to repair her rocking machine. Quiche is kind of the word that I think of. Kitschy. Even if you are stuck in a... Oh, boy. Oh, boy. When you have just one report, burn some shoe leather. Mercifulness. Is mercifulness? So let's take some of these. Let's or make a donation directly. Maybe we could just add this as an addendum.
Did you know Dad used to click his tongue at me every time I said, in conversation to get me to stop saying it? He himself has gotten better at not saying, but he's replaced it with a certain phrase. Let's see if you spotted this too. To wear, every day wear, the car that drives down the street with a big, they may not about, bugs, and they give you so much, start something, finish a little, for kind of a weekend warrior, she was doing really well with these. Think of a bookcase that instead of, cutting, to kind of get a, Now for all the things I thought were funny to hear as his offspring. Dad just gave me free ammunition for some reason. Did you not know your kid was editing this?
I am getting a little long in the tooth. You know how to build something to prevent a 3-year-old from totally destroying it. Who wrote this? Oh my God, is that awful? Oh yeah, I wrote that. Sorry. Losing your temper in your steel, not with your kids. In my feeble mind, oh, that hurt. You don't have to do any of that stuff. Occasionally I throw them in the dishwasher when the wife's not home. I don't know, sometimes my brain just doesn't work very well, especially if you're listening to this podcast. So then I found a 16th inch by 3/4 O-ring and slipped that on. It was just like our wedding day. And even if I did have my cell phone with me, there's a real strong possibility that I would lose it in my cell phone.
I now regret to inform you that it is time for funny noises. You have no idea how many burps and coughs I have had to listen to editing 70+ episodes of this podcast. This is but a taste of what I have had to endure, plus some other funny noises he somehow managed to make.
Yeah. And, you can dream, all right? A little smoky in here. I find... I am so sorry. I went the entire morning. Nothing. Turn on the mic, and I start belching like a drunk sailor. The finishes that work. Wasn't supposed to say that, was I? Why? Because you're going to struggle. You're going to add. Okay, you need to cut that out. Sorry. True grit. I'm sorry. No. 30s. Obviously, I didn't pause. How did this happen? And it starts. Oh boy. But no. I don't want to do something half beep. Now what? Boom. Or B, do them. It's just like using a standard nail gun.
Now on to all of the asides and short tangents. If you think the edited version is bad enough, try talking to him face to face without a script in front of him. For hard mode, simply ask him a question or his opinion on something. Man can talk for hours. A trait he passed down to me. It's a blessing for a nerd and a curse for us as introverts.
Pause. Oh shit, gotta hit the button first. Sorry, I kind of screwed that up a little bit. Insert music clip here. Long pause. Yeah, maybe a second. Ooh, I'm kind of thinking of some Bob Marley right now. Or develop a unnatural love affair with your computer mouse. Cue the Working at Woodworking coaching ad. I think you have the clip. If not, I have it over here. Oh boy, here we go. And in this corner, all the way from Japan, costing $250, wearing the striped shorts, Waterstone. And in this corner, hailing from Marlborough, Massachusetts, at 176 USD, wearing all gray, Die Sharp. Okay, sometimes I have too much fun. I am so sorry. Maybe you're one of those sandpaper people. Oh, stop. Legal notice. I am not a tax professional. Consult your own tax professional. Relying on some goob on a podcast for tax advice is a dumb move. Seek out a professional tax advisor, your mother, your priest, before making any major financial decisions. You have been warned. You're back. And take your old frog out, put your new frog in. God, does that sound bad. Put it on a 45-degree bed angle. Let's see, 45. Let me take my shoes off. That is so annoying out there. Go away. What do you do really, really well? I had an inquiry from, there goes the air compressor. Frickin' squirrels! I'm back. Oh, that's a sweet sound. I might use that as a ringtone.
Well, that's the end of the bloopers, folks. Hope you had fun listening and happy woodworking.